Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Holt from Exodus and formerly from Slayer, and you're listening to The Razor's Edge.
What's going on, guys? Tom here from The Razor's Edge, and I'm here with Bobby Blitz Ellsworth from Overkill. How you doing, my friend? Are you well?
Hey, Tom. Good to see you, man. Good to be talking here. Audio only, as you said. But yeah, I'm doing well, getting ready for the Scorching the Earth tour, which is going to start in approximately a week in Europe. So we're going in and out of rehearsals at this point. Yeah, so yeah, a little bit the worse for wear, but can't wait to get out on the road again.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. I'm sorry to hit you with weather, sir, but I'm sure you come back kicking ass, like as always. So,
I mean it in a good way. It's not a bad thing. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. I just want to go back a little bit first before we get into obviously the brand new album. How was your pandemic season? I know it's kind of still a thing, but it's not really as prominent as it was. How have the last few years been for you?
Yeah, it was obviously different, like, for everybody in every part of the world. I don't think anybody anywhere was not affected by it. Maybe anywhere in the modern world anyway. Fucking weird. Had the opportunity to obviously write the record, which was great comfort in an uncomforting time. But I don't think people are paying that much attention to it here. I was at a family issue yesterday, and there was this woman, just like spew and cough out behind us in at this place we were at. And I don't think, it hit me later. I was like, nobody really even cared, at this point. It might have been rude, but nobody really gave a shit. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's to the great degree it's over, especially with regard to the panic.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I can't believe she's doing that though. It's like it's done. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's over now.
She was trying to hang in. I mean, she was trying to hang. You could hear her choking back there, trying to hold it. She couldn't just leave, and eventually she left. So I'm not sitting here trying to out her as some kind of a pig, but I was just using it as an example that nobody really was like, hey, could you stop that, or that type of thing. So I think the majority of that panic is over. We're just kind of back to being the normal slobs that we are. Without that Peter pandemic ruling our lives and thoughts.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, well let's go back. Let's go back even further. What actually got you into music in the first place? What made you want to be a musician?
Well, I just think it's cool. I mean, like most kids, you find something in my parents' record collection to listen to, when I was prepubescent, and, found some Johnny Cash was in there. And I think they bought us the Monkees record, which was an American band with an English singer, Davy Jones. There was a few Beatles records around. You pick up the tennis racket or the broom, and you air guitar in front of the mirror. And I think that's really the first, step toward it. But then, very soon thereafter, I was buying my own LPs, and I was looking for Alice Cooper, Led Zeppelin, or some Black Sabbath, and I think that kind of formulated the metal years in my head, or the early metal years. So I think I couple all of that together with the fact that my mother actually did it. She was a singer and toured with Mitch Miller, which is a great big fucking name for big bands over here. She was a soloist. When she was alive, she sang every day of her life. So it was one of those things where singing was very normal in my family, and then nobody was afraid of it, even if you couldn't sing. Because it just was normal. It's what your mother did when she was cooking dinner, making your bed, or just enjoying herself. So I think that a combination of all those things I just mentioned.
Oh wow! So was she like an influence for you as well as obviously Alice Cooper and Zeppelin, etc.?
Well, I think so, and I think again it's to that point where being the singer is not necessarily, especially in a hard rock or a heavy metal band. I mean, the big thing on the front end when you're a kid is not being Ronnie Dio. It's just being not afraid to make a fool of yourself. Nobody wants to hear their own voice, or many don't want to hear their own voice. But somebody's got to stand up there and fucking do it. So, I think my feeling is that sure, she influenced me by just making it, by normalizing it, first and foremost, that if she's doing it, we're doing the same thing. I mean, if I heard my mother singing, my sister would join it. That was it was a musical household when it came to melody. I think that sure, she's an influence. I didn't know it back then, but looking back on it, and especially with this question, I say sure. Why the hell not? I mean, it was like I look forward to hearing that voice. You know.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that. It's incredible. I think that's absolutely incredible. Um, Band-wise, where did the name Overkill actually come from?
Well, I remember we were all sitting outside a place in New City, New York, you know, on the car. I don't know if we were drinking warm beer or Coca-Cola. It was back when we were a cover band, and you know, we had instituted a bunch of you know, fine selections from the Ace of Spades into our, you know, our repertoire back then. Some Scorpions and some Riot, some Motorhead. And I think it was really a combination of, boy, what a great name, and obviously Motorhead together. You know, it was a combination. I can't say that it wasn't Motorhead influence, because it most certainly was. We were big fucking fans of the, you know, the Fab Three at that particular time, and you know, for us, it just seemed to fit what we were going after. You know, once we knew what the definition of overkill meant in the English language, we were like, this is perfect for us. You know,
Yeah.
to destroy with more force than necessary, you know, and we're like, oh, this actually describes what thrash was going to be for us later on. So it was kind of a forethought to, you know, what later became an insight, you might say, but for sure, Motorhead influence.
That's awesome. It's so great so far. So you mentioned, obviously, getting into the thrash game. What made you want to go into the thrash? Because obviously there's so many genres to choose from. What made you get on the thrash road?
You know, because it was uncharted. You know, we didn't know we were on the thrash road until we were on it already. You know, it was nobody sat there and said we're going to be a thrash band. I mean, we like the new wave of British heavy metal. I mean, you know, like I was mentioning the Motorhead songs, but I mean, you know, something great came out of England with Paul Di'Anno, you know, fronting Maiden, and it was that punkyish kind of Maiden on the front end. And we were all big kind of punk heads, you know. And I mean, I grew up back in the, you know, the East Coast scene with, you know, the when the Ramones were just kind of a local band, and the Heartbreakers and the New York Dolls, and you know, all that shit. So any kind of punk stuff was, you know, to me was a-okay, as long as it had a little melody and a lot of fucking snot and grit. But I think that understanding what thrash was is understanding it after it actually happened. You know, it was, and that was probably worldwide. It was 1984 when, you know, Metallica released Kill 'Em All, and it just, you know, it changed the scope of music. And I don't think everybody grabbed their template. I think that you now realize what template that you were actually working in simultaneously with a band like this, as they did in Essen, Germany, or Birmingham, or Tokyo, or Los Angeles, San Francisco, what the fuck ever. But we're all doing it simultaneously without, you know, without the benefit of the World Wide Web. And pretty soon thereafter, we're a thrash band. So we didn't know. And again, it's just insight into the future. It has nothing to do with, you know, being groundbreaking. It just happens to be in the right spot at the right time. Add, you know, 2 parts heavy metal, 1 part punk, a shitty attitude, and too much cold beer, you get thrash. You know?
Oh, beautiful. It's
So,
almost
you
like
know, when people do interviews with me, it's not like, you know, I never preface it with, you know, I'm not going to be an asshole.
um, so you're like literally, other than obviously your bassist, the only founding member left in Overkill, and you've been going for a fucking long ass time. I think that just goes to show the rate of your success in a way, that the chemistry, etc., that you have, and the love that you have for the music and what you do, because you're still here 40 years later, smashing it out the park, you know, on a yearly basis, with your 20th record coming out. Insane. It's absolutely mental.
What do you attribute it to? I mean, I really don't know. I mean, it's obviously a good relationship with Dee Dee and myself. There's many other bands there that, you know, you can say have done similar, or have had similar success, or varying degrees of that success, more, less, same. But I think, you know, for me, I just, you know, I always loved it. And, you know, I kind of found that, you know, I was not the long-sighted guy who said, okay, we're going to be here for 20 records. I was like, okay, make the best out of the second one, because it might be the last one, you know, and I'm still have that attitude when it comes to the 20th record. And I think that for my own personal positive movement in this scene, or just in my career, if I'm always trying to up the bar, it still stays interesting to me. You know, it's a love of the music, but I aspire to be that singer like my mother. You know what I mean? Where you can capture an audience instantaneously, even if they weren't your children. So I think that the relationship with Didi and I is a huge part of our success. And his wife had brought it up to me that it's because you guys are brought up the same way. You put your families first. You treat each other like you're part of that family. If that's the case, all things take care of themselves after the fact. So if we have the same upbringing, it's kind of easy to understand each other. And that leads to kind of the time that we spend yielding positive results musically. It's, if you're sitting here complaining about who's the most fucking important person in the band, who gives a flying fuck? You could put all those fucking guys in a room, they could all be virtuosos. You come out with a pile of shit and fucking, egotistic, you know what I'm saying? Offering. Yeah. This is just quite simply good teamwork. And I think that's why we succeed, at least for 20 records anyway, why we succeed.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Lyrics wise, are they you write them, I take it, yeah? Are they very personal to you, or are they story based, or are they political? Like, what exactly do you base your lyrics around?
Well, I have a pool of things I go to. Once it was a thrash band, I kind of understood where it was going. The early lyrics, I was in a university in New York City, and I was taking what's called a liberal arts degree. I was going for that, which means that you don't know what you want to fucking be. That's really all it means. It's like I'm in college and I don't got to work. You know what I mean? All I got to do is hold down a job over the summer to get enough fucking beer money for the rest of the fucking 9 months of the year. So, I was throwing Shakespeare in there. And courses I was taking English literature, and I think there's a little King Lear in the first record, and, et cetera, some Latin in there. I was also brought up Catholic, which I know is a dirty word today, but I really don't give a fuck what people think about me. But the point being is I went to Catholic school and I had a Catholic education. So there was a lot of that I used in it too, because I knew this stuff. It was really easy for me to write about the struggle between good and evil because it was part of my education. If I was paying attention 1 out of fucking 5 days a week, I was going to get something with a good and evil kind of a struggle. So that was easy for me to put into word. So from there, I take from that pool and start adding the current day. And I've always said, what I do between records is I make a list of all my sins and I fucking confess them on the next record, which helps me become a better man, cleans my soul a little bit. So I take from the pool, confess my sins, and then can kind of move forward from that point. It might be unusual. It might be not the thing that is so unheavy metal. But, if I really gave a shit, I never would have told you. If you see my point. I can't believe there's fucking Catholics out there writing about this shit. Well, it makes me a better person. And I think that's, to some degree, what the journey in life is. Not to say it's all over someday and nobody understood my fucking genius. I really don't care. I care that I make it a little better before I leave here. And that's the most important thing to me. So that type of lyrical content or lyrical forward movement for me has always given me that opportunity.
Awesome, mate. It's almost like all the fans of the priest sort of thing. Like you're confessing to everybody out there, being like, here we go. I'm going to cleanse myself. This is everything I've achieved. Enjoy, basically.
It's hey, listen, you can only get better if you admit the wrongs to yourself. You know what I mean? And if I do it outwardly, and I'm not saying for God's sake I do these awful fucking things, but sometimes to me it's just easier to, if I'm trying to correct myself on something. And I'm not like a practicing Catholic at this point. I'm not like the guy who's going to church on Sundays or anything, but it was a huge part of my upbringing. And I think that it stayed with me. So the point is that somewhere in there, regardless of what people agree with or what they disagree with, there was some good in that with regard to how I lived my life as an adult, and I think sometimes, admitting something is the first step to correcting it. Otherwise you just live in that whole denial thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So here we are then. The 20th record is coming out on Friday, the 14th of April. Scorched. Are you excited for it to come out? Excited for its release?
I am excited. it's not the same excitement when, you did your first record after playing, the air guitar in front of the mirror to Johnny Cash songs, 10 years later or something. But it's a huge amount of excitement because I think it contains something different. I think it's, oh God, I can't say it's back to basics because there's so many different characteristics on this record. It's that shit like I mentioned earlier. I was playing air guitar to some Black Sabbath songs, or Alice Cooper's, and I think that this fucking record contains rock and roll and some doomy elements in it. So I think that the excitement lends itself to look at all the shit that we've collected on this fucking journey. You know what I mean? We're not just a thrash band. We're a heavy metal band. We're a rock and roll band. We're a blues band. We're, sure, you put it all together. You run it through our fucking meat grinder. It comes out the other end as Overkill, which is a thrash band. But the point is that those influences exist. And I think that that's where the excitement comes from, that kind of diversity.
Yeah, there's some absolutely filthy riffs and bass lines in there. Like, and I was listening to it earlier, just like, this is incredible. I've never had the privilege of listening to you guys ever before. So to be open to that sort of world, I was like, oh my God, it just straight from the off. I was like, this is like, in a good way, obviously, it's like just disgusting riffage straight away. Like, it sets you up beautifully for the rest of the album, I think.
Oh, I mean, it's dirty as fuck. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, it's just got a fucking stink to it. And I think that, there's something to attribute the success of 20 records to not being afraid of doing something like that. To say, hey, we were influenced by that early Maiden, and we were influenced by that early Sabbath, and we are a thrash band. All that shit's on there, and it's all in different spots throughout the record. I mean, there's a riff on there. It's got to be one of the dirtiest riffs we ever did. It's the fifth number called "Wicked Place," and it is just this fucking blues ride on. Did you see Breaking Bad? It was a series here about a high school professor making methamphetamine.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so it's like Wicked Place is kind of like that old blues riff on the blue meth that Walter White was making. It's not like it's just hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting. And I'm thinking it's a fucking blues song. It's something I was singing in the 70s. You know what I mean? In my house, in the shower somewhere. I heard this riff somewhere before. And Dee Dee came up with it. And I was like, man, this fucking record is everywhere. But the key is putting that Overkill stamp on it at the end of the day, putting it through that meat grinder and making it our own. So I'm really excited about the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would be after hearing it. So I'm excited for everybody to enjoy this one. Well, you mentioned Wicked Place, and obviously The Surgeon as well, the two singles that you've already released as like a little teaser. Have they been well received as well?
Yeah, I mean, The Surgeon was the first one, and I think that that's more the template that we've been playing on as a thrash band for years. Now, it's obviously the parameters have been pushed to the left and to the right, up and down, because it's been modernized from the 80s. So it's not the same as the 80s. It's thrash a la 23. So the idea of releasing that song first as a single was to say, okay, the pandemic knocked a lot of people back, knocked them down, and we lost some people, obviously. But some shit remains the same. All this fucking craziness, if you're looking for something to depend on, press play. That was kind of the thinking behind that, to not go as far out to the avant-garde type influences of Wicked Place first, but to say, okay, there's normality among the abnormality. There's sanity amongst the insanity. So that was received really well. And then the contrast of Wicked Place being the second one, I think was just a fucking beautiful setup. That it was just, you got your thrash, you got your fucking heavy, blues, Sabbath-esque kind of blues, and it's it's two ends of the spectrum for those both releases.
Yeah, which gives people a bit of a taste, like you say, of one end, and then in the other, it's like, oh, this is quite interesting to know what else is on there. I mean, I really enjoyed Won't Be Coming Back, Harder They Fall, and Bag of Bones. I thought they were absolute bangers, all three of them incredible. So,
what was the middle one? You said Won't Be Coming Back?
Harder They Fall.
Okay.
And Bag of Bones.
All bangers, yes, all bangers. A little bit different than normal. I think Won't Be Coming Back has got that heavy metal I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something kind of I don't know. There's something kind of Judas Priest esque on that song. You can't say it's 100% influenced by it, but it just kind of it leaks into it. I don't know if it's the phrasing in the vocals or the way the riff and the vocals play off of each other, but there's something Priest-esque on it, which I'm really happy about. And Bag of Bones was, my partner Dee Dee has always mock titled his riffs. And this was mock titled Last One, and I immediately thought it's because it was the last riff he had written. And I said, no, this one is because it's the most different than everything else, and it should sit by itself somewhere. So it's got a really kind of, you can't say it's modern, you can't say it's kind of metalcore, but there's a little of that hardcore thump and beat to it, but the groove is thick as, and it's just kind of a fun way to end the record because, we were talking about the journey earlier. The whole thing is lyrically is about the journey. I've gone from the East, I've gone from the West, I'm over here. It goes, hey boy, you want another taste? I've been chasing this drug since the fucking 80s, so that's all I wrote about was that, that end of things. And to me, it's one of the more outstanding tracks on the record based on its difference to where it stands next to what precedes it.
Yeah, it's definitely got that 80s themes to it, though. It's definitely, it feels like we're still there, but we're kind of not. Like I said, it's like a la 23 now, but it's definitely got the 80s vibe to it, I think, as well, with like the structure of it and everything.
Well, Tom, that's it. It's a good pickup right down to even production. We chose Colin Richardson and Chris Clancy to mix this record. A couple of fine English gentlemen, but the point is we picked Colin because he does good records. It's just that simple. And this is his fourth experience with us. 3 mixing and 1 full production, soup to nuts, start to finish. But, he started mixing it. And I think the only guidance we gave him was, we don't want it so compressed that it makes your ears tired. We want it that somebody can listen to this on 10 if they want to and go from the front to the back. They can do 51 minutes without taking a break. And he did that. And as he was doing it, he started picking up the fact that it came from another era. It came from that blues era of the 70s. It came from a little bit of the 90s. And he mixed this modern drum sound with a room resonance on the drums that lent itself to a little bit more of an older feel, and then started making the guitars match that too. So the cool thing in my estimation of this is that it's almost like listening to 2 eras simultaneously. It's like listening to thrash a la 23, but knowing that it came from somewhere else simultaneously. And one listen, you're hearing 2 eras. So I think that's kind of cool that it's kind of, I don't know, time travels, a time traveling type situation with production.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you. This is going to be a tough one since you've got 20 records. What sets this album apart from everything else you've already done?
When everybody asks me that, I always say, I'm going to give you the standard answer. This is the best fucking record since they started putting beer in cans.
Love it.
I think the diversity, but we've always had that diversity to some degree in the past. But, it's so hard to rate the record. I'm excited because, I'm into it up to my eyeballs at this point. I just finished writing it as of my end of it as of last December when Colin started mixing it, and so, I can't see the forest because of all the trees, so it's a simple kind of I could let you know in a year where it stands, there's records that have stood the test of time for me that I could still listen to and still feel that moment of excitement this many years later. The first record, obviously, because it's just youthful chaos, a record called Years of Decay, Horoscope, Ironbound. These are records that we've done over that 20 that have stood that test of time, that have lasted more than that year of excitement for me. And I think that's the only fair way it can be about yourself, to critique yourself and say, let me give it a little time, see where it stands in a year. So,
okay, I'll come back to you then.
I'll talk to you in a year.
So, at the beginning of this, obviously, you mentioned you got on a European tour next week. Now, with 20 records, writing a set list must be horrific.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the guys say, maybe we should just do an evening with, because then we could do like an hour set, and then we do another hour, and we still can't cover half it. How much material could you cover? I mean, if you do 2 hours, you're only doing 2 records, really, if you think about it,
Yeah.
So the set list will contain some of what's called the classic stuff. Now, these are obviously videos or, over the years that people have latched onto. It was their first experience with us, from years ago, or even fairly newer videos. These are, those, they become a kind of a classic or an iconic tune. So that they have to stay. And that's usually 25% of the set, maybe a little bit more. And then we try to put 25% in of kind of hidden stuff, because there's so much shit, that maybe we should do some stuff we haven't played, or maybe we should do some stuff we haven't played in 2 decades. It'll appear new, and it'll be absolutely new to some of the newer, headbangers that have picked up on us since, say, 2010. So that's another 25 or 30%. But we got to do the new songs. I mean, that's always, it's always the important thing to me. I never cared about what I was. I always cared about what I am. You know what I mean? You only know where you're going if you know what you are. But the point is you don't want to live in what you are. You want to live in, or what you've been. You want to live in the current day. And that's the feeling of danger, is doing the new songs. And that's part of this attraction, is that dangerous feel. So there's got to be 4 new songs in this whole thing. And there's another 25% coming right there. And the next thing you know, we're down to just a few percentile left. And, I don't really care at that point. I talk to the other guys, say, put in whatever the hell you want. You know what I mean? It's just, so I'm only good for 75% of it, and then I just kind of pass the obligation off to somebody else. I'm going to get a sandwich. I'll see you in an hour. Let me know what you decided.
Fantastic. I'm
not an asshole, but I get.
You're also playing Manorfest in Toaster on the 26th to 28th of May, I think it is, here in the UK. Looking forward to that. Of
course. I mean, I always like coming to the UK. It's always a big, it's a big deal. I think the first time I was there was a second tour, 87. We were opening for a band called Halloween, and they were on some magic carpet ride back then, and they did the Hammersmith Odeon. It was like, fuck, man. It's that thing in your head, where being a musician, from the records that were done there, from the iconic bands that are played there. And that was my introduction to the UK, was the Hammersmith Odeon. I mean, it's no better introduction, if you know what I'm saying. And it's always been a great ride for us going through the UK. Obviously, shit's changed a little bit, I think, with the politics of the fucking day. It's not as easy to get in there with, with all the visa requirements and work visas, et cetera, and new taxes and, that whole kind of a thing. But that aside, musically, probably one of the greatest, not just countries, but conglomerate of countries that make up a fantastic offering of music for anybody, from my era. I mean, I've been listening to that shit forever. I'm actually recording stuff with a couple of guys where we're messing around with old English covers, at this point, the shit that we did as kids, stuff from the 1970s. So listen, I mean, if that's a testimony to how I feel about the UK, that's I don't think you can get any better than that. So
absolutely. Thank you very much. Massive respect. Is like a different feel with festivals compared to gigs, though? Because obviously festivals being outside, way bigger, that sort of thing. Do you feel like you put more into it because it's a festival, or is it still that you're going to get the same regardless?
Festivals are they're kind of like the unknown. You can do them forever, and every festival stage is different, and because it always depends on the weather, and it depends how the wind's blowing, what you're going to hear. I mean, wind actually moves sound. I mean, if you've been at festivals, you realize this. You're like, why did the sound get better? Well, the fucking wind stopped. That's why the sound got better. But the band feels that all the time. So you're at our level anyway. You're in a great period of unknown, for that hour you're out there, because you're using other people's shit in other persons or in other configuration and a different world. So I personally rather do headline shows because it's our world. And, we can all the variables that are necessary to be tweaked, we can tweak during the day. In a festival, you throw when you go. It's just that simple. You get up there, you gotta, hope for the best kind of a thing. Please God, if this festival comes off good, I swear to God, I'll never kick the dog, and you won't find me drunk on a Sunday morning again. Amen.
Is there a plan for a UK tour?
It'll come in later. I mean, this is right now, because of the post-pandemic stuff. We're looking to do the most economically feasible tour that's possible, and that's why we chose the with our agent, obviously, the territories that we're doing. This is where it's economically feasible for us to make it, and really hope that things kind of turn for that second tier of music to be able to tour everywhere else again. It doesn't mean we're not going to tour. We're doing the States after after Europe. Of course, we're going to look into the UK, but you can do a UK tour on its own. You can go over, whatever. You can go over to Ireland. You can go to Northern Ireland. You can go, you can do England. You can do something in Wales, etc. And you can put together 15 to 20 shows just in the UK. So it's possible for us to just go over and do that. And we have somebody checking into it now.
Ah, fantastic. I'll be keeping my eyes peeled. Don't you worry about that. Finally, before I let you get out of here, I'm always intrigued when I speak to musicians about this, because music videos used to be huge back in the day. Not so much now. I still think they're good because a lot of people watch YouTube and that sort of thing. But making them, writing the storyboards from all that sort of stuff, music videos, do you love them or hate them?
I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. I don't like being, I mean, my partner's artistic. He has an eye for things. He has a brain for art outside of music. So I think that with that on our side, we get better results than just the norm of handing it over to a dude, saying, oh, hey, listen, we need to do a video. And he comes up with the idea and the storyboard. So I think that we're a little ahead of the game with that. But on the personal note is I'd just rather not. I don't think that I don't think they ingratiate you to anyone. I think that whole visual, to me, takes away from what the song itself is doing. You know what I mean? It's somebody else's, somebody else's idea of how you should be presented. No matter, even if you come up with the idea, they're still the ones that are doing the editing, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not saying that they're untalented people. They're very talented people. But I think videos are so hit and miss. I mean, all the videos we've done over these years, if there's 25 or 30 videos to a record almost from like the 90s, I don't know. Maybe there's 5 or 6 I say are great videos, But that's just me. The other guys would say, oh, they're all great. Or, somebody who follows the band goes, you're crazy. What are you talking about? It's great to see the band perform. So I understand their value. But when it comes down to me personally, I just don't like looking at videos. I don't even look at other bands' videos. I could care less. I'll hear the song. I love listening to the song.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of streaming and stuff now with Spotify, because obviously you don't have to watch them anymore. And that's why I think they died off, because a lot of people just would rather listen and then go and do something else at the same time, rather than no one really sits there and just watches music. I mean, as a kid, I used to watch them all the time, like every day, non-stop, religiously. But now, not so much.
I think you're probably, it was a different era back then too. Besides, you're a kid. I mean, you morph into something else eventually. I think I probably was the same way. MTV came about as I was, in my 20s. That's when video killed the radio star, and it was, it was an unbelievable, phenomenon, to be able to visualize what you were hearing. But I think that eventually I got tired of visualizing what I was hearing, because it took away half the fun for me. Because half the fun is finding out or deciphering what a song means to me when I'm listening to it. And I hate when somebody comes in later on and starts saying, oh no, the lyrics mean this and this and this. And I'm like, oh fuck, I'll never listen to that again. It's like, for 3 decades, I thought it was exactly the opposite. So I don't need the visual to help me. So it's probably my little fantasy end of doing it is that I like to I like to make up my mind about a song instead of have my mind be made up for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bobby, man, this has been so much fun. I've absolutely loved talking to you. Obviously, the brand new album Scorched is out Friday the 14th of April, so make sure you're streaming it, listening to it, blasting it, turn it up to 50,000, not 11. Get it right up. Go hell for leather. And I wish you all the best for the tour, man, and with the new album coming out in a couple of weeks.
I got one thing to add here, right? I mean, we just did the interview, so you got a good feel of what kind of person I am. April 14th is when we release this record, right?
Yep.
May not be the biggest in the world, but we'll fight anybody because the big boys are releasing on the 14th too. We said, bring it on, motherfucker. You San Francisco, we're gonna fucking hit. It's a Metallica release too. So the point is I thought about it and I was like, oh, this is actually pretty exciting. Because we're actually going to be compared to the biggest heavy metal thrash band that's ever existed because we're releasing on the same day. So when anybody ever asks me, or even if they don't, I throw my 2 cents in and say, we're not afraid of those fucks.
I'd love to see that take on Hetfield. That'd be incredible. Bobby, my friend, thank you so much. This has been absolutely incredible. And like I say, I wish you all the best with the record. I wish you all the best with the tour. And hopefully I'll see you down the line.
Thank you, Tom. It was a good time, my friend.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.